Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheila with another story for you. Our story today is called Calming the Storm, and it happened in the Philippines. There was a group of missionaries getting ready to go to Piang, Anakin, and they needed to be there before dark because they were going to do an evangelistic meetings for the people in that village. Well, they'd started out in plenty of time, and one of the girls said, "I am so glad we finally have gotten to the lake. That was an awfully long hike. I'll be glad to get into the canoe, and all we'll have to do is paddle across this lake." Well, when they had gotten to the edge of the lake, all of a sudden the sky above them got black, and it started to rain, and the wind started to pick up. Well, they got in the canoe and they started paddling as fast as they could. But they weren't even halfway across that lake when the wind was howling so bad that it was whipping up waves in the top of that lake that was no longer calm anymore. It was making a foam on top of it. And the rain, it was so cold. And with the wind, they were shivering inside of that little canoe. And finally, the guy that was in the front of the canoe trying to guide it and paddling, they couldn't paddle against that strong wind anymore. It was coming straight at them, and they needed to be over that way. Well, then one of the girls looked up on the lake and she said, "Hey, there's a little boat coming, and it has an engine on the back of it. Maybe if we asked real nice, he would tow us." So when he got closer, he said, "Are you guys all right?" And they said, "The storm's so bad. It's just buckets of rain. And we can't paddle against this wind. Would you be willing to tow us across the lake? We've got to be to the village of Penang before dark. Would you be willing to tow us?" Well, the man was real friendly, and he said, "Sure." So he threw them a rope, and they tied it onto the front of their canoe. And the man restarted his engine, and they started going across the lake. And everything was going wonderful. They were just skimming across the top of that lake. But now, those bucketfuls of rain were filling up the bottom of their canoe. They were sitting in the water. And the wind was coming straight at them, and it was making it hard for them to get towed. And then the waves were so big that they were crashing over top of that little canoe. And finally, that kind gentleman that was towing them, he turned around in his little boat and he said, "I'm sorry, but you're so heavy with all the water in your canoe. My little engine can't pull you anymore. I'll pull you over to the edge of the lake, okay? I'm sorry, but I can't tow you anymore." So he changed his direction, so he wasn't going straight into the wind. And they came over to an area at the side of the lake. But it was miles from any roads, and there were no villages anywhere. And then one of the girls stood up in the canoe, and that rain was still coming down. And she said, "Hey, everybody, pray with me." So she started to pray, and everyone else in that canoe bowed their heads and they started to pray too. She said, "Oh God, you know this is your work. The people paying are counting on us to be there, to tell them about Jesus. They don't know you yet, Lord. Please, when you were here on earth, you calmed the Sea of Galilee when that big storm came up. Please, Lord, can you help us with this storm? We trust you. Please, oh please." By this time, they had gotten to the edge of that lake. And the man that was towing them, he said, "I'm really sorry, but I just have to leave you here right now." But he had listened while they were praying. He could hear their voices over the wind and the rain. And all of a sudden, something absolutely marvelous happened. The rain stopped, and the black clouds started to move across the sky, and the sky cleared, and there was sun, and the wind died down. And those missionaries, they looked around and they said, "God heard our prayer." Well, they were still nowhere close to where they needed to be across that lake. And they hollered to the man in the little boat. They said, "The wind has stopped and the rain has stopped. Can you pull us now?" He looked at them. He knew that a miracle had happened. He said, "Of course I would." And he looked at them in awe. The God that makes the wind and the rain had stopped the storm for them. So he started up that little engine, and with no wind to fight and no rain to fill up the boat again, they were pulled straight across that lake to where they needed to go, to being. And you know, when they got there, they got to tell those people about Jesus, just like God wanted them to. You know, sometimes the devil, he sends storms and all kinds of things to keep missionaries from doing their work. But when they asked Jesus to help, he did just like he did on the Sea of Galilee, and he calmed the storm. Do you know, boys and girls, if you have anything that's going on with you that's like a storm, do just like those missionaries did and stop right where you are and pray to Jesus to help you. And I'm sure that he will. Thank you, boys and girls, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.